I'm Liz.
And I'm Marie. And this is Mock It, a podcast from MetroStar where we take a deep dive into UX design, trending design topics, and making our work transform the government. Let's get started today.
Awesome. So for today's episode 7, this is a part 1 of 2 episodes, and it's on how the pandemic changed the digital experience. And so you'll notice that we have a lovely guest with us, Leslie.
Hello.
So before we do our intros, what we're going to do is just to kick it off, we just want to do a sort of brief intro into how the pandemic has changed digital experiences. If you've been listening to our podcast, we've talked a lot about this, and one of the main things that we've all done is we've gone virtual. So
Working from home.
Yeah, learning new tools, learning new remote tools and collaborative tools. So before we wanted to put that plug in before we really dive in with Leslie, get going so you can sort of hear how we kind of tackle the more specifics of that in our previous episodes. So with that, Leslie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am a UX designer, UI designer here. I have been working here for about 2 years and have gotten to do a lot of everything, I think. Like I've been part of research, I have been part of wireframing and making high fidelity mock-ups, and I've gotten to work with both internal MetroStar as well as working with government clients. So also been like kind of on some tech challenges recently, which has been a really interesting experience because we're just in the practice phase right now. But for anybody that doesn't know, the tech challenges are kind of taking place of like a proposal on paper. Instead, the government's going to give you a prompt and you have 7 days to build it with your team. So I have been working as the designer on this team, and we're just trying to practice, our getting everything together, like backends and how do we talk between the developers and the designers, and giving ourselves kind of like fake prompts right now. So it's been really fun because I like the kind of like pacing of it. It's so fast and exciting.
And is it virtual too? Because before the pandemic, right, they would go in the back room and really dig it out.
Yeah.
So how's that been virtually?
I think because I went to General Assembly, I did the boot camp, and so a lot of those experiences were very similar. It's like, iterating quickly with a team, and so I do miss that like face-to-face interaction, of course, because when you do have to like iterate very quickly, you want to be able to just like, hey, could you look at this? Like to somebody who's sitting next to you. But instead, it's being a little bit more cognizant of like, can we jump into a room? Can I get 3 people into a private chat? Because like, you don't want to bother the entire group in like the bigger room, right? So you do have to be more thoughtful when you're like doing it virtually, but it's working so far. So
cool.
Are you guys using like Teams or Zoom or
Teams? Yeah, and then I'm just throwing everything into our Envision. We have that big like canvas that everybody's putting their stuff onto, and then so I'll put the screens on canvas for people to just kind of glance at, but it's also in the Envision so that the developers can kind of like inspect everything and get their kind of questions answered. But then we're also doing some QA as well, just kind of like looking over things as they develop them.
Cool. I'm like ready to dive into the weeds of just doing tech challenges virtually, but that's not today's. You'll have to come back, Leslie. I'm so interested in this one.
Yeah. You'll be a regular guest on this podcast. But yeah, so for today's episode, I'm actually really stoked about our topic for today, which is going to be misinformation. So as I'm sure a lot of people who go on the internet or watch the news or anything like that, that's been a very hot topic, especially over the last 2 years and last several years more generally. So with that, do you want to give us a little overview of misinformation and how it's been interpreted in different spaces and in different digital spaces?
Sure. So I am like a huge social media user, so like I'm kind of the perfect person to talk about this because I feel like I have all of them, right? And but I feel like that there's like a really concerted effort across all platforms to have kind of the same basic flagging. So it's going to be the COVID-19 flag, and each social media is basically creating their own kind of dashboard to talk about like hot topics around COVID-19, so that anytime that that's like hashtagged or talked about in a video or an article or something that's posted, that you get that flag so that it can kind of tell you like, do we think this is accurate information, or do we think that this might have something that needs to be flagged? So, and then there's just kind of the general like, we don't know, but here is the latest information about COVID-19 if you want to check it out. So you're seeing a lot of like different uses of that. So I was kind of like, you know, just in preparation for this, kind of like scouring through a lot of different things, and I saw an article that got posted on Facebook that said, you know, it was something about like hydroxychloroquine, and it had like a little flag that said, this may not be like a great way to cure COVID-19.
To
so
treat
like
your symptoms.
exactly. So like, you know, here's more information about how this is being used, and maybe like just like a better way of like approaching it, right? So you do see like different uses of it. So sometimes it'll just be like a basic, this is COVID-19 information, do you want to learn more? Or this is like a flag. We think that this is like wrongful information about something that we think is really serious. So
how are they visually identifying the differences? Because I was just thinking back through my use. I definitely know I see the COVID-19, right? I have my own like biases about like the information out there on social platforms. I can't recall if I can tell if it's just like, oh, this is about COVID-19, or this is like a flag. You might want to check your sources.
The kind of funny thing is that because like I'm in my own little bubble where I started like defriending people that were putting things that I thought were like distressful.
Yeah.
I kind of found that I was like, everything on my feeds are not those,
Are
right?
not flagged.
So
Yeah.
I did have to kind of like go searching for them. But when I did find one, it was like you have your usual like COVID-19 like button, but then like right underneath is like red text saying like, we think that this is harmful information about COVID-19. So I don't see them often because like I'm in my own algorithm bubble, and they're very good about like showing me what I want to see.
Yes, they are very good. We were just talking about that earlier before the show.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I was wondering the same thing, because I do see that like, that it's just like a general flag that, or like general, not even flag, it's just like a banner that's like, you know, this is about COVID. But I'm very much in the same camp with you two of, I have a curated list that I follow, and you know, I've either muted, defriended, etc. to things that I, you know, it wasn't a happy space for me, so I just took it off.
Yeah, social media is not where I'm getting my information about COVID. So I think like I see it and I'm like, nah, we're going to the next. Like I will do other research.
Yeah.
So then with this going on, previously there were no such flags on or banners on any type of information that was on social media. You know, people just put, you know, social media has, and you've probably seen this as like an avid user of social media. Social media sort of changed from being like, here's a picture of like my family or like my grandkids, or like you know, or like Twitter, like I ate a sandwich today, like, you know, like very like life updates, to now it's sometimes controversial. So how have you seen this switch, and like, do you think anything has particularly sparked it, or do you think it's just been you know, social media has grown?
I think that it's definitely got a lot to do with like social media growing, and the fact that like there's so many different things that you can do now on the platform. If you think about the original like use of Facebook, it was literally life updates and pictures of your dogs and stuff. But like you know, with like media social sharing, with like that coming on, and Facebook becoming so complex with everything that it can do, it's just like created a world where information is being shared at like the speed of light. So I think that, you know, social media has their work cut out for them, like trying to combat like all of it's being shared right now, because even if you have people full time trying to kind of like search through what's being shared and take things down that are, you know, controversial, they can't keep up with it. So that is kind of like, you know, where UX designers do come in, because like the research that we do about how things are being shared definitely is going to move forward in combating like misinformation.
So I have a question that will pertain to my two designers here. That you sort of gave the perfect segue. So, as designers, how do you think we can counter some of this misinformation? Help people get notified, or help people find information that they might be more looking for?
I'll leave it to Leslie. I find this so interesting, and I know very little about it.
So I actually saw a really, really great interview with a researcher who was talking about looking into how people share things and do they care about the accuracy of what they're sharing. And across the board, people do really, really, really care about being accurate. There's maybe a tiny sliver of people sharing things purposefully that are misleading or misinformation. But across the board, people want to share accurate things. So I think a lot of the times when people press the share button, it is so easy to do that, which I think that there's kind of a problematic thing happening here, that our share buttons are almost way easier than our flag buttons, right? So to go through the process of flagging something as misinformation, you're probably going to have to go through 5 steps, because there are so many different kinds of misinformation, and you want to flag it as the correct kind. Do people really have the patience to do that? And how invested are they going to be to go through that process? Whereas a share button is literally a second. Nobody's stopping you. So there is research that kind of suggests that if you can pause somebody in the process of sharing something and remind them that things might not be accurate, that this may be a really great way to kind of give people one pause before they go to share something. So there was research done where they made a bunch of fake accounts, and they would try to follow people and get them to follow them back. And once they had been followed back, they would send them a DM, and it would just have an article that was a really ridiculous title, and they would say how accurate do you think that this article is? And in the next 24 hours, people were way more thoughtful about what they would put on, just because they had seen that title in that DM. Yeah. How accurate do you think that this article is? Yeah. And so just being able to make them pause and think about accuracy in the way that they're looking at things for the next 24 hours, even though they had these users had been known to share misinformation often, they stopped for 24 hours. Yeah. So this research kind of was showing that if we as designers can kind of put things in people's way, to kind of make them pause when they're sharing things, even if it is a pop-up that you have to make go away, to say okay, well, the source of what you're sharing has been known to post things that are misinformation, or this is the amount of content that they're putting up that we believe is misinformation. If you can give them that cue, they're going to be more thoughtful about maybe moving forward, because generally people do care about accuracy. So I think that designers are very creative in the way that even if we are going to do something like that, we'll find lots of different ways to do it, right? So even if people got used to one thing and then they're okay, I'm just gonna press cancel and I'm gonna go ahead and post it, we'll continue to find different ways to make pop-ups, to have banners, to do campaigns, to keep that kind of thought in people's head. So I would love to see as we're moving forward, if this really comes to fruition, because this research is being done with a lot of big social media campaigns right now.
Yeah, no, I think your point about it's one click to share, but the DMs and Instagram are just mark that an account is a spam account, because I feel very ethically I need to do that just to help out other people to not get scammed. It is 3 or 4 steps, and I do it and dang, what did I do last time? How do I just, I just want to tell you it's a spam account. Yeah. And there's different questions, and I'm crap, how did they think about last time? What did I think last time that was successful to get it marked? It is more challenging than just sharing.
Yeah, I actually went through the process of flagging something on TikTok, and their flags are extremely complex, and they make you read through these things, because they're okay, because this TikTok that I was watching was kind of it was somebody in camouflage saying like, oh, I don't want to be vaccinated, and like putting on like face paint like he was going to war, right? So I was like, this feels like it's like violent content, right? But like when I pressed that violent content, they were like, this person wants to like go out and harm somebody, or they've shown like graphic content of them harming somebody, and I'm like, well, that's not really it.
Right.
But
just went from 0 to 60.
I know.
It's like in the middle.
So and then they're like, oh, if you don't really know, you have to go read our guidelines, which I'm sure like super long. So I don't know. I think that there's a little bit of a problematic, like, you know, there's a problem with the way that we're flagging things. It might be overly complex for a typical user.
Yeah.
I recently saw an article that, and then maybe you saw this in your research as well. I think it's Country Abroad. What they're doing is before people can share an article, they are making people answer like a basic 5-question quiz about the content of the article. So just like the blockers that you were saying, that, you know, like designers are creative. I was like, oh, that is creative, because like even if it shows that people are going past the title of the article to really see what the content is. So maybe that's one way to kind of put up a barrier that then sort of slows misinformation.
I don't think that people are reading articles. They read headlines, and headlines are meant to be misleading. You know, like it's clickbait, right? So a title of an article could be completely different from what you're actually reading. So I like that idea. Making people like actually read an article before they share it and see if that's like really something that they want to put out in the world.
And
no, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, do you think that will help with some of like the accuracy of information being shared? Do you think it'll just stop misinformation being shared? What do you think that the impact will be of these sort of tactics that designers and different social media sites are using?
I think that it's a huge problem, right? And like, yes, people will maybe like think twice before they put something up, but there's still going to be a lot of users that just want to like move forward and not read stuff. So like canceling through like pop-ups and stuff can become like repetitive behavior too. So it's like I say, it's like the job is not one step, you know, it's going to be like several different ways. But there's also like great research to show that like maybe crowdsourcing could be a great way to like battle misinformation, because if somebody can mark something as misinformation as just a normal person, and people continuously do this, then, you know, it puts like the power in the hands of the users, and you're not having to like have this huge crowd of people trying behind the scenes to take things down because there's just not enough of them, right? But like you put the power in the hands of the people, and then that gives them this kind of like sense of responsibility for what's happening on the internet.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I do like your point of, you keep talking about like it's one solution and that there's many ways and we're creative. I'm really big on being iterative and snacking on it. You know, we make the best solution for what the information we have currently, and then see what the impact is of that solution, right? Was it a success? Was it a failure? Did other things come up that we were unaware of before? So this is definitely one of those. There will be lots of trials.
So I know that we get to have you for another episode where we're gonna take like a more deep dive look into media literacy. I have a ton of questions that you're totally segueing into, but I'm holding back because I know that we're gonna be sharing their episode with you. So that's why I sort of reached my questions that I'll be asking during this episode. Okay. But I'm going to dig in our next episode and really get into some of the nitty-gritty questions that I want to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, same. I'm really pumped about media literacy.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, with that, this is Mock It. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share with your friends, and join us next time. As always, if you're interested in learning more about how government and tech collide, visit MetroStar.com and follow us on socials. Thank you, Leslie, and we'll see you in the next episode.